Dave Lockard, One Mission Outdoors. I'm on the Alabama team out here. Retired out of Fort Hood last year. I did 21 years and moved back home to Alabama. I just got on the team about 2 weeks ago, and Jesse and I were talking about knocking out a bucket of arrows, kind of as an introduction to myself as well. So, talking about my setup, I run an old Elite Impulse 34. It's 2015 model. I don't chase technology. I like finding something I'm comfortable with, and I stick with it. This bow has done me right. I've killed a lot of deer with it. It's a long axle bow, and with me, I'm 6'1" and a half. I need a long draw length. I think I'm at 30 and a half on my draw. So if a 30 and a half draw length with a short 28-inch Matthews, it just don't work for me. It works for some guys, it just don't work for me. I'm running the QAD drop away, a Montana black gold whitetail with a 3-pin. I've got 100 tape on it. I can comfortably shoot a paper plate at 100 yards with this thing. It's a fast little bow. It's only 60 pounds, but I'm shooting about 300. It's like 297 on it. And that's all from just string time, that long draw length. I shoot a Black Eagle Renegade arrow. Cheap arrows, break a lot of them, so you know how it is. They go through a deer and hit a tree and break, ferrules break. I like a $50 half dozen arrow. So, talking about techniques, I shoot with a lot of people, and if I see something that could help them, I usually try to tell them. And first things first, we all have to draw a bow to shoot it. I see a lot of guys, when we practice shooting bows, what do? We get that stance more than shoulder width apart. A lot of guys that don't have stand time, they'll do this, sky draw it, or that semi-sky draw, I call it. It's kicked up and come down. But what I found is, in my deer stand, I don't have a shoulder width apart. Hell, sometimes I'm shooting out of a saddle. I'm a saddle hunter. Both feet are on a platform that's only 8 inches by 6 inches. So I try to train like I'm going to fight, and I keep my feet on the inside about 6 to 8 inches apart. And for that reason, in a deer stand, you can't spread out real big. So I need to practice how I'm going to shoot at that stand. That being said, when I draw, and I've taught a lot of guys this, in a deer stand, you ain't really got a whole lot of this. You might have some brush that you left in front of your stand to give you some concealment. You need to have a bow. In my theory, shoot what you want, do what you want. In my theory, you need a bow that you can take, and when a deer or any other animal that you intend to harvest comes out, you can put that arrow on target and draw straight back and let it down comfortably. To me, that's the most important thing. Bow control. If you got a 75-pound bow and you're in a stand, your feet are less than shoulder width apart, and you're up there trying to get this thing back, that's a lot of movement in the stand. We just don't want movement in the stand. So that deer, when he comes out, I'm making that silhouette. I'm gonna bring my left hand out, put arrow on target, I'm gonna draw straight back. Now the next thing I want to talk about is anchor points. My biggest anchor point, my knuckle behind my ear, so I'll bring my head, my ear, and I'll lay it there on my knuckle. If you see here, I got a Bowmar nose button. I'll take that and I'll just barely put my nose on it. It keeps my face off my string. Relax my hand so I'm not controlling my release. And I squeeze. That trigger control is very important bow hunting too. A lot of guys, I'll sit there watching Outdoor Channel or some of these sportsman channels and all, and I'm watching these guys shoot, and I'm talking about guys who were hunting for decades. They'll punch it. So for me, it's just like a rifle. Draw, anchor point, nose barely touching my Bowmar kisser button, my nose button. I'm not touching my release. I squeeze and follow through. Allow that hand, because you're pulling all that string pressure back. It's 60, well, this with the being relief, I'm only pulling about 6 or 7 pounds, but allow that arm to come on back. That's that follow through. Another thing I do too, I don't know if I just did it, I try to practice it, and hopefully muscle memory will remind me and allow it to play out naturally. But I told someone I shoot with a lot, I suffer from panic target, and it comes from not trusting my arrow flight, not trusting my technique, not trusting my muscle memory, my anchor points, and squeezing that trigger off. And when I do, I had a bad problem with squeezing, following through, and I wanted to move my bow either away or down because I wanted to be able to see that lighted knock. That's one thing I got away from, was lighted knocks. I trust that if I do everything correctly, I don't need a lighted knock to show me where the point of impact was. I've got a blood trail. And it's just my technique. I wanted to get my bow from in front of my vision, get it away, because I wanted to watch that knock fly through the air and see the point of impact. And by me not trusting my muscle memory, trigger squeeze, my my anchor points, what it started doing was when I would release, I started noticing I would bring my bow down and out and get it away from me as I was squeezing. And I got super inaccurate. It got so frustrating. Got to dissecting it. Another big technique is to take your phone. We all have smartphones. Put it up somewhere. Put it on slow-mo. Hit record. Draw an arrow in front of it. Release the arrow. Dissect yourself. Go through and say, okay, I didn't follow through. I moved my bow. Tried to get that bow out of my line of sight. It's all things that you can, break yourself down and start looking at your technique. So we talk about anchor points. That bow mar right there, I used to run a kisser button. And it was somewhere right in here, just north of my servants. And when I would go to full draw, a buddy of mine, he took a picture of me one day. And he said, man, you're putting so much string pressure. And I see it in videos too, watch these hunting channels. These guys have got their cheek pulled back so hard away from their mouth, and it's fine, it works for them. Didn't work for me. When you do that, it don't take much pressure to push that string off of that alignment with these cams in your sight system and your wrist. So now that string is over here or here. It's got to come back to neutral. It's going to cross that neutral path, come back in the middle, and send the arrow. Well, all that's doing is the front of your arrow is going doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. And it was something I didn't know what I was doing wrong. I had a buddy of mine. He said, buddy, you're putting too much face pressure. And I had it buried. I was just in there deep. So I bought a Bowmar nose button. These little edges, I don't know if you can see them well, but it's like a little star. And you line it up with the tip of your nose. And you see when I get the full draw, I don't want anything on that string except for barely my nose is touching. That's an anchor point for me. So I think I just dropped my arm. I'll have to look back at that video. So that was one of them. I had to get rid of that. Pin discipline. And I'm pretty sure I hadn't shot in a couple weeks. Been really busy. But I'm pretty sure I'm not practicing that now. And I told my wife, something a buddy of mine out in Texas showed me. Whenever I put my arrow on target, come back to full draw. Get everything lined up, locked in. Level my sight out. Squeeze. And keep your pin on your target until you hear that thud. And I got a little golf tee in the middle of one of my circles. And on that, I know I was moving my hand because on that hit, I just center punched that golf tee. Pin discipline, like I said, that was one of the things that got me away from target panic. Target panic is that get my bow away from me so I can see where I hit, or floating your pin in there and at the last minute doing something different with your sight system because it's time to pull the trigger. So blind bell drills helps. A guy told me about that. It's essentially you're going to put a target up that you absolutely can't miss at 0 range. I'm talking about like from me to the phone, a meter. You're going to hook up, go to full draw. Your arrow is almost touching the target. You want it, that's what he said, you want it 1 arrow width away from your bow. So when it releases, you know, you got plenty of room between you. And you take that bow, lock everything in, close your eyes, and focus on nothing more than trigger squeeze, muscle memory, and keeping that arm locked in there. And that was another really, really good technique. I did that for a while, and then I got to noticing that I could practice that without a really big target in a confined space by practicing pin discipline. And that pin discipline comes back to draw, lock in, squeeze your trigger, fall away, keep that pin on the target even after the arrows come off. Obviously it's going to be hard because all that kinetic energy is going to go somewhere, but you know, hyper accuracy, when you release, it's going to move away a little bit, but you're keeping that arm there for the most part. That's some of my techniques. The other thing I want to talk about was something that my wife kind of plagues with. I love her to death, but when she would come to full draw, she had just a monkey grip on this release back here, and would release here and punch trigger. And I got to noticing that she shot better if I could get her to rest her trigger finger on the trigger, relax these 3 fingers and your thumb away from it, because at this point that is not going to come off your wrist, period. Trust that that release is going to stay there. You're not controlling the string left or right, you're just straight drawing back. Wave to the crowd is what I used to tell her. Wave to the crowd and squeeze and release, and her shot group tightened up significantly. Again, these are all just little techniques. Shoot how you want to shoot. Make sure whatever you're doing, if someone else tells you it's wrong, if it works for you and you do the same thing consistently every time and you have a accurate shot group, it's not wrong, period. I mean, you got professional archers that don't have arms and they're shooting with their feet. I mean, if I look at you and tell you, man, shooting a bow with your feet, buddy, that's wrong. I mean, where's your anchor points? Where's this? Where's that? But it worked for them. So again, do what works for you, but be consistent. Do the same thing every time, and that'll get your shot group down to where it's tight. And then you can move your sights where, you know, you're hitting accurately. But that's all I got for today. Got to get back to work. I got about 30 more minutes to finish up some stands, and I got a coon dog down there that's needs to be run tonight, so we're gonna go coon hunting for a little bit. Appreciate you guys, and I will see you next time.